Hi everyone, this is Krystal and I'm back with a 12 by 12 layout for the Hip Kit Club design team. I'm using mostly the February main kit for this layout, and I'm going to try and use these really beautiful frames that were in the kit. These are from Everyday Musings by Pink Fresh Studio, and so I have some photos. I have 3 small photos that were taken last May. It's been so dreary and cold here lately. I just wanted to scrap a bit of sunshine. So I looked back at my photos and found these that I hadn't scrapped last year, and I'm gonna get them on the page today. I'm starting with a piece of cardstock from the Cardstock Kit. This is Basil textured white cardstock, and I am just gonna play around and see what I can come up with. So I am going to start by just trimming down this cardstock to be 12 by 12, so just taking off that branding strip. And then I'm going to start getting out these frames. So I'm just removing them from their packaging, but being careful not to remove the adhesive on the back. I know I want to play around with them and move them around the page quite a bit, so I don't want them sticking yet. So I'm just carefully peeling them out and leaving the adhesive backing intact. And I don't make you watch all of that because it did take some time to pull all of these out of the packaging, but it wasn't too bad. It was fairly easy to do. So I'm just going to see which ones I want to place on the photos first. So I have a few of the larger frames. There's one that says together, so I know I want that one on the photo of us together in the hammock, and then I'm just placing the other 2 on the photo that it looks best with. And then I'm just going to kind of play around and see what I can come up with. So the idea that I have from the beginning is just to have kind of a cluster of frames in the center, and you can see I'm layering them. And at this point, I'm thinking that I would trim off some of the corners so that it would look like they were layered, but really the page would be flat. But I end up changing my mind. You'll see how that happens here in a bit. But I want to also make sure that I leave room for my title, so that's what I'm doing now. I want to use this Gather chipboard from the Cardabella chipboard set that came in the February main kit. I really love that Gather script, and I'm also going to add some of the Pink Fresh Studio alpha stickers that came in the kit. So these are puffy alpha stickers from the Joyful Day collection, I believe. Yes, they are from Joyful Day by Pink Fresh Studio, and I'm going to use them to spell the word outdoors. Again, I didn't make you watch that whole process. It does take just a minute to get all of those lined up, and I'm just using my Thicker's alignment tool. It's just a clear plastic ruler to get those all straight, and that allows me also to move them around the page without having to stick them down. So still just kind of playing around. I definitely know I want to back some of these frames with some of the papers from this cut apart sheet from Pink Fresh Studio that was also in the February main kit. So I'm just playing around, seeing what works, trying out some different papers behind the frames. I want to both bring in all the colors that are on the page. There are quite a few colors on the page already. I want to bring all of those together with the papers that I'm choosing, and I'm also looking for things that are kind of outdoorsy, since that's what this page is about. So all of the florals and things like that, those are the things that I'm leaning towards at the moment. I thought about trying to use one of these little squares that has a phrase on it, but it was just not the right size. I didn't really like the floral at the bottom of this one, and it wasn't the right size to fit in either of the other frames without the floral, so that didn't work out. For this green frame in the center, I want to use a solid piece of pattern paper. That doesn't really make sense. Solid paper and pattern paper are 2 different things, but you know what I mean. I want to use a pattern paper to back that one up. So I chose that blue one because it echoes the color of the letter stickers in the title. So I finally figured out I could flip over one of those 2 by 2 squares, and there was a floral on the back. So that works out perfectly for that bottom frame. And then a few of them are just going to be left blank so that you can see the white cardstock behind it. So I like everything so far. I'm going to start adhering the frames to the papers and the photos that I've chosen. So I just lay the frame down and then just trim around it with my scissors. So I remove the adhesive, lay the frame down, and then just use my scissors to cut the paper around the outside of the frame. And that works just fine. It makes it so that there's no overhang, and I also don't have to measure each one and try and cut too precisely. So that's the easiest way for me to back up all of those frames with the papers. So I'm going to do that, and then I'm also going to do the same thing with the photos. So when I place the photos, I'm just being careful to make sure that I'm getting exactly the right part of the photo that I want to inside the frame. I did measure the frames for these photos before I printed them. So I measured the largest frames in this set, and then edited my photos in Photoshop to be about that size. But of course, it's not exact. It wasn't exact. So when I trimmed them out, I left white space around the outside so that I would have a little bit of wiggle room when I placed the frames down, and I wouldn't have to worry about getting it exactly in the right place. So this frame has some little notched corners, so it was a bit trickier, but I actually just ended up pulling the corner away and snipping it straight across the corner instead of trying to match those little scallops on the corners, and that worked out easiest. For the frames that have the little notches at the top, I just made sure that the paper was below those so I didn't have to try and trim those out either. Okay, so just cleaning up my area. It's getting a little bit out of hand, and I definitely like a clean space while I'm working. So just kind of moving things around a bit. And now thinking about how I want all of these to go down. So you can see I have them layered, and I know that I don't want the photos behind them. So I was thinking of trimming off the corners so that where they overlapped, it would be trimmed off. But then I thought, what if I just put the photos on top and had even more dimension on the page by popping up the photos on top of these frames? And when I started putting them down, I really, really liked the way that looks. So that is what I'm going to do. It takes some finagling to get it all right exactly where I want it, and I do end up adding a few more frames just to make it a bit more balanced. I think I do that here in a minute. I had to get some foam adhesive, of course, to put behind the photos, since the frames are holding them up on part of them, but not the whole thing. So to adhere them down, I needed to grab some foam adhesive, and the one that I have out there actually ends up being too deep, like too thick. So I had to find another one that was not quite as thick. And I used that one instead. But before I do that, I'm going to start adhering the ones that are going to sit directly on the page. I'm going to adhere those down so everything's not shifting around quite so much. And I'm just using some double-sided tape to adhere that. That seemed like the easiest way to me. I thought it would be a bit hard to use a tape runner on the back of these since they are dimensional. So I just am using some double-sided tape instead. And I start off being very diligent about adding tape to all four sides, but I think I just got lazy. After a little while, it was taking a long time, and it was a lot of work. Yeah, so here you can see that those foam squares are just a little too thick, so I go and grab something different to try. And this is a foam adhesive. I don't even know where it's from. I've had it in my stash for a really long time, so it's probably a good thing that I'm starting to use it up. So yeah, I'm just putting the photo down just so I can see where I need to place these frames, but I have not adhered that photo yet. I don't want to do that yet. I just want to get all of the ones that are in the background glued down first. So you can see I'm starting to get lazy. I only put 2 pieces of tape on that one, but it's strong tape, so I'm not worried about it coming up. It's not going to go anywhere. And again, just adding some foam to the back of that photo so I can get all of the spacing right. And then just adhering the other frames down around it. So here is where I realized I needed a few more frames. So I try that pink one in that empty space below the yellow framed photo, but I didn't really like the pink, so I'm going to try a blue one, but then that was too much dark blue, so I try another one. There was this light blue kind of ticket shaped frame, and that ends up being the perfect thing to fit in that little blank spot there. So I add that, and then I think I also decide that I didn't like the two blue frames in the bottom together, so I grab this green one instead. And even though I've already adhered that blue one on the bottom of the page, it comes up really easily. So I was able to pull it up and add it to the top, and then switch it out for this small green one instead. And I like the balance of that a lot better. It feels more balanced, like I said, to me. So that's what I'm going to go with. I'm just going to, again, finish up adhering all of these frames that are just adhered directly to the cardstock. Okay, so now that I have everything pretty much where I want it to be, I'm starting to notice that things are a little off balance. So the layout is heavily weighted on the right side. So to fix that, I'm going to end up backing it with another piece of pattern paper and trimming off two of the sides to make it feel a little bit more centered. So I'm just auditioning a few of the pattern papers from both the main kit and the pattern paper add-on kit, and I end up going with this one here. This is a Hip Kit exclusive paper. I used it on my last project as well, and I really love this scallop bee paper, and I'm going to do the same thing that I did last time and keep the branding strip on it. But before I do that, I want to add a few splatters to the page. So I grabbed, this is just a really inexpensive watercolor set that you can get at pretty much any big box craft store. And I'm going to use 3 colors of blue, so I want some variation in the tone. So I'm choosing just 3 different blues, and I'm just doing some really basic splattering with this paintbrush. Nothing complicated. There's no gesso or anything on my cardstock. It's just a really small amount of water and watercolor, just to add a little bit of messy splatter to the background. So now that I've done that, I can add the photos back, and I think I'm ready to start adhering those. So I have a few pieces of foam tape on them, but I need a few more just because they're a bit wobbly on the page with just the one. So I'm going to add a bit more foam adhesive and then glue all of those photos down. And I'm just cutting tiny pieces of foam adhesive to add in some of the corners where the frames overlap. I don't want them to be wobbly on the page or to not sit straight. So just making sure that everything is really secure. I'm also trying to be careful not to smudge the watercolor I've done. Even though it was a small amount, it's still a little bit wet, so I don't want to make too much of a mess by smearing that all over the place. In a couple places I needed to add just a little bit of liquid glue. There wasn't enough room for a piece of foam adhesive, so I just added a tiny bit of liquid glue to the frames to make it so that they were well secured together. And now I can start embellishing. So this is the layered embellishment set from Pink Fresh Studios that was in the kit, the February main kit. This is from Joyful Day, and I'm going to add quite a few things from this embellishment set to the page. So I'm going to add 3 of these little buttons. I do like to do things in threes. It tends to look balanced to my eye, but I don't stick to that religiously, so I add 3 of those, but you'll see I add actually 4 little floral pieces from this set instead of 3, and that just looks right to me. And then so I added this little floral die cut is actually one of the dimensional adhesives that I had taken off the foam and cut in half that while I was working on another project. I thought I was going to use it. I didn't end up using it, but I just left it in the pack and it works perfectly on this spread. So I'm glad that I didn't throw that away, that I left it in the embellishment pack. And then there were also these enamel dots in that same pack, so I'm just going to add a few of those. I'm just sprinkling them around the page wherever it looks like it needs a little bit more color. I do not stick to the rule of threes on this one. I'm just adding them wherever it looks right to my eye. And then I think that's just about it for embellishing. Yes, I actually pick up the page just to be able to look at it straight on to make sure I liked the way that it looked. And I do, so I'm just going to trim off two sides. So the left side of the spread and then the bottom, because everything was kind of centered towards the right top corner of the spread. So I just trimmed off those two sides, and it looks much more balanced to me now. So I can add the background paper now. So like I said, I'm going to use this Hip Kit exclusive paper, and I'm going to keep the branding strip at the top. So that blue patterned branding strip is going to stay there, and I'm actually going to trim off the other side of the paper to make it a 12 by 12. And I really like the blue at the top of the page. I really like the way that looks. So before I adhere that down, it has been bothering me a little bit that the only black on the page is in the title, so I decided to just add a few little black splatters, and I try and do this really carefully since all the embellishments and everything is already on the page and glued down. I still make a mess in a few spots and have to try and wipe it off of some of the embellishments and other things, but it's okay with me. If it's a little bit messy, that's just fine. So I really like that much better. It makes the title feel like it makes more sense on the page, just having those few little black splatters. I am going to gut the background paper just because it's so gorgeous and I don't want to waste any of it. So I'm just going to cut the inside out, making sure I leave plenty of room for the layout to adhere to this background. But that at least gives me a little bit more of this paper to play with. And I'm just going to use a tape runner to adhere the layout to the background, and then that is pretty much going to be it. I'm going to draw a few lines in pencil and add some journaling underneath the title. You'll see that in the close-ups, and then I also add a date stamp as well. So there are some close-ups coming up. Thank you so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed this video. Be sure to check out the Hip Kit Club kits. They are absolutely gorgeous and so much fun to play with. You don't want to miss out on them. So I hope you enjoyed this. Thank you so much, and I will see you all back here soon.